Good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to host you here, to have you here today on this, our inaugural Lunch and Learn session, and I'll unpack the reasoning behind it and what we were all going to do, but really great to have you join us here this afternoon. And I'd like you to please type in where you're from. So we're running this from our offices in Techno Park in Stellenbosch. We've got people joining us literally in the park. We've got people joining us from the surrounds in the Winelands area, but we've also got people joining us maybe from other areas. So type in where you're from, either on Facebook Live, whatever you're listening this to on, or on webinar, and you've got a little control panel there that you can type in, and we can then get a sense of where everybody's at. But the whole purpose behind the Lunch and Learn is to take what is for me frustrating in life, where we got all these things that we need to know to be successful. We need to know to be good at either our job or running our organization or running our company. Yet nobody taught us this stuff. And we struggle through it and we fight through it. And the purpose of Lunch and Learn is to literally get you in and out in a lunch hour and make sure that you're exposed and able to learn the things that maybe you should have learned before, but that are really going to help take you forward a lot. So it's going to be as interactive as we can. We're going to take questions if the time allows. And whilst today might be a little bit longer, just setting the scene and explaining the logistics and things like that, going forward, we're going to make sure that we get you in and out in kind of in half an hour. So we positioned it as an hour for today, just to get you into the string of things, so to speak. But we're going to make sure that we get you in and out in a half an hour, in 30 minutes. So it will happen every second Tuesday of the month. Every second Tuesday of the month from 1 o'clock to then 1:30. We'll go live on Facebook, and you can also go and register on our website to make sure that you, for the webinar, can get the reminders and the engagement and all that kind of stuff. So go to impact.actioncoach.com. You might be listening to the recording, impact.actioncoach.com, and you can, under the event section there, find the upcoming events that we're going to be focusing on too. So today we're going to talk about time management. And you'll see how that, perhaps it's insane, so to speak. But we're also going to be looking at things like engaging with teams, managing your teams, making sure you've got high-performing teams, sales, marketing. Towards the end of the year, we're going to be doing goal setting. We're going to focus on developing a niche for your business. So it's going to be a different focus every month, ensuring that we can impart a hell of a lot of value in a short space of time for you. As I said, we're currently recording here and coming to you from our offices in Techno Park. That's Techno Avenue that you see at the back there, and we are right up on the right hand side at number 22 in Cotillion Place. So if you ever come past, you might see us. We've got a whole range of marketing initiatives that are happening in and around the Winelands area and the park, specifically focused on two main campaigns that we're quite passionate about. And the first one is What Recession? What Recession? I have an Action Coach business coach, and that's our company. We're an Action Coach business coaching company, a global organization that today operates in over 80 countries around the world. And our sole focus is to make sure that we help and aid entrepreneurs and business people to run more profitable and more sustainable businesses. So What Recession? I have an Action Coach business coach. You'll be seeing some of those things coming out soon. And then one I'm really, really passionate about, and that was launched last week, on the back of our unemployment figures. And I'm just gutful, excuse the word, gutful of our unemployment figures and the notion of just waiting for other people to solve the problem or looking to government to solve the problem. We're going to wait a long time to get that right. And the reality is, with 7.2 million unemployed people, but the expanded unemployment figures sitting at over 11 million people, that is dire. And you can go watch my video on YouTube where I launched the campaign. But I want every business out there, every person, if they can, to employ one person. If every one person employs one person, we will cut unemployment by half. Now, the reality is there's no political party, no matter what t-shirt color they give you, that's going to cut 50% off unemployment anytime soon. But you and I can do it by all of us just going after one. So that's a really important passion project, maybe so to speak, for us. So I think let's get into the thick of things. You'll see we're doing from the you'll know fantastic business right at the park, some really normal women and men that are involved in that business. And what I do going is if we're stuck here during your lunch session, some lunch, order some coffee. Their wraps are unbelievable. My personal favorite is the beetroot and feta salad, which is really, really good. So you can look forward to getting that too if need be. But we're going to talk about the concept of time management. So the first thing I want to focus on is some myths around time management. And there are quite a few. So you're welcome to take notes, scribble down as much as possible, and if you've got any questions, then we'll definitely deal with it as well. But let's look at the concept of time management. That's myth number one. How do you manage something that ticks along and you've got no control of it? You can't. It doesn't exist. So whilst we try and manage time, whilst we're sitting here, time is ticking away, and we actually literally have no control of it. So it's much more a process of self-management, self-prioritization, and we'll unpack how you go about doing that through the course of the Lunch and Learn session. But don't get fooled into thinking that you're going to manage time. You cannot. Nobody can. And if you ever find the secret and put it in a can, you'll be the richest person in the world. But you cannot manage time. So that philosophy and the thinking by breaking the myth is the important one. How do I look at what needs to happen, what's available to me, and cut through that to ensure that I actually go after my priorities, my goals, which are critical. So the first myth is you cannot manage something that you cannot control. The second one is this notion that's been becoming a lot more popular of late, work-life balance. And I think as we went into lockdown and the coronavirus and everything that went with that, we might have had a little bit of that back. We don't have to commute as much. Sadly, we were stuck at home, so we had to spend time with ourselves and our loved ones. But this notion of work-life balance is a myth. And I heard this many years ago from a speaker in the States, but she illustrated in this way. When I'm standing, I'm properly balanced. The danger is I'm not moving. There's literally no progress. I'm not going forward, I'm not going backwards. I'm stuck. And you'll see later when we unpack what we should be doing as human beings, it's impossible to get work-life balance in the moment. Excuse me. You cannot get work-life balance in the moment. The reality is, though, you can get work-life balance over a period. Now, very difficult to get work-life balance in a day. Not much easier over a week. It starts to get a little bit easier over a month, but the reality is if you focus on a quarter at a time, much easier to get that work-life balance right. Excuse me, too much presenting of late. So banish this notion that you're going to get it right in the short term. You need to look at it. This is of counterbalance. So maybe I'm on a deadline. Maybe I have to work really hard. Maybe I don't have the opportunity to invest in myself, in my family, in my loved ones. Well, there's a long weekend coming up next weekend where Human Rights Day is on the Sunday and the Monday is the holiday. So maybe I counterbalance on that day. So I swing the pendulum this way. I work really hard. I do what needs to be done. And then I swing it the other way and then take the time. I can't maybe exercise 5, 6, 7 days a week, but I can counterbalance 3 days a week and make the priority for it. So damn near impossible to do it in the moment. Start looking at your work-life balance more as a continuum over 3 months at a time, quarter at a time, and make sure all those critical priorities get space in that environment. The next myth, if we look at it, is this notion of you can have it all. And we had the most fantastic franchise developer working with us recently. He's also a Paralympic athlete, runs his own business, helps his mom in her business, and really is geared to get a few gold medals for South Africa if the Tokyo Olympics happen this year, and an unbelievable human being. But when we got to the point where we're reevaluating Mpumelela's career, I said to Mpumi, you know, this is not working. The priorities are too many for you to chase. And he said, but Harry, this is what we teach as business coaches. This is what we hear all the time, that you can have it all. No, you can't. And that's an absolute myth, because you can have it all, again, over a period. You just can't have it all at the same time. And I think often that's the danger. We're really trying to have it all in the moment, all at the same time, and that's not possible. Purely because there is a restriction on the amount of hours in a day and the amount of hours that a human being can function sustainably. So, try and do a 20, 21 hour day, a few days in a row, and then see what happens to your mind. So you can't have it all at the same time. But if we break those myths and say, okay, we can't manage it, we can't control it, it's not going to be possible. Work-life balance is a fallacy in the moment, so we should rather look at it over a quarter. And we can't have it all in the moment. Then what can we have? How can we make sure that we take back control of our most limited resource? Because everything else we can make more of. We can make more money. We can find more resources. We just can't get back time. So I want to talk about a time target principle. And we want to focus, really seeing it as a kind of a bullseye. What are we going after? Now, the reality for all of us, we have distractions. We have things happening every day that distract us, that are not urgent and not important. Both not urgent and not important. And that's typically things like Facebook, social media, browsing the internet, people just coming to talk nonsense for the sake of talking nonsense. Interruptions that are really not that important. So not urgent, not important, pure distraction, but they're the reality. So what we want to do is get those distractions to be kind of 10% of our working week. Notice I said working week and not working day. See now why I say that. So those are the not urgent, not important. But then we've also got these things that we delude ourselves a little bit, where we also want to look at around about a 10% kind of split. These things are not important, but urgent. So not important, but urgent. We delude ourselves into thinking that they're important, but they're actually not. They're urgent, but they're not important. And those are things invariably when we've procrastinated, when somebody else hasn't done their job and we're now firefighting, when we are helping somebody else out the dwang, because it should have been dealt with before. It's become urgent, but it wasn't important. And it's still not important, but if we don't deal with it, it could have ramifications. So again, we delude ourselves to saying it should be right. Those are things to identify and say, okay, how can we catch them earlier on? How can we nip them in the bud? How can we stop procrastinating? How can we delegate? How can we put the right systems in place to get these things as a warning, not right at the end when they've now become urgent and we have to firefight? Okay? Then we've got these things called demand. They demand our attention. Now, ideally, we want to get that to kind of 60% of our working week. Now, what are things that demand our attention? Well, pretty much our job and our business. We have to see clients or customers. We have to do sales and marketing. We have to manage money. We have to train our teams. We have to have meetings. So these things that we need to do to manage and run a business, a department, an organization, but to also sustain and grow it. So whether we like it or not, that's part and parcel of the job, so to speak. And that must take priority because it is both urgent and important. If we don't do it, there won't be a business. If we don't do it, there won't be livelihood for ourselves and those that we employ. So we want to make sure that 60% of our working week is covering off on the things that demand our attention so that we can sustain ourselves and our business. But if we've got 10% there, 10% there, 60% there, that leaves 20% for what? And that's really getting into the point on the bull's eye here. We want to work, instead of on our business or in our business, we want to work on it. Okay? So we don't want to work in the business, we want to work on it. Now, those are things that are not that urgent, but are important. Now, in our personal lives, we have them, but in our roles in organizations and running companies, even more so. So maybe something that's not urgent, but important in my personal capacity is life insurance. It's not urgent. It's important if something happened to me today, but it's not urgent. Having a will, it's not that urgent, but it's important. Now, the reality is for all of us, often we neglect the personal things that are very important but not urgent, and they get put aside. But that's no different in business. So let's think what's not urgent yet very important in business. Staff training, staff evaluation and appraisal, not urgent. Very important, not urgent. Strategic planning, quite important. No urgency around it. And we were caught last year unawares because we hadn't done scenario planning, we hadn't done planning for a pandemic, and whilst nobody could have foreseen it, what it did do, and thank you little virus for that, it put a magnifying glass on the problems we already had. Because we haven't made the time to think it through or to plan, and therefore it wasn't urgent, but it was important and we neglected that. So strategic planning is important. What about thinking? Now, you say, well, thinking, we think all the time. No, but actually sitting down without interruptions, without a computer on, without an agenda chasing you and say, okay, well, let's just think this through. And that could be for your staff, for your finances, for your sales, for your marketing, for the future of your company, the future of your role. Where do you find the time to actually think? Because you cannot just go from ideas mulling around your head to plans and goals. We have to think it through. We have to truly think it through. So where's the thinking time? Well, Harry, that's not urgent. There's no time for that. Yes, but it is important. And I think as the world evolves, as the pace of change gets faster, it's critical that we actually spend more time thinking, and we don't do nearly enough of that. So we want to be focusing on the stuff, working on our business, on our role, on our organization, and giving 20% to this. 20% needs to be at that level where it's in the sweet spot. So that's the time target that we need to be working towards. But there's things around business that are critical that we do. And there's 9 different hats that an owner of an organization would wear, an entrepreneur would wear. And there's 9 hats that when you're big enough, maybe you have a director or a senior manager or a supervisor that run with. But there's a few of these that we sometimes neglect and neglect quite badly. So the top ones are the important ones from a business development and delivery perspective. It's not sales and marketing. Marketing comes first. So first we need to be ensuring that we're wearing a marketing hat. We go through a process of converting that interest, converting those leads and prospects into sales, into people that actually part with money. Well, now we have to deliver on the promises we made. It doesn't matter if it's a product or a service, we need to deliver on that. So now we wear a delivery hat. But now behind the scenes, we're juggling a whole lot of things. Because don't we have, just for short, ICT, all sorts of IT-related items, let's call it that. We've got CRMs and websites and ERPs and management systems and performance systems and financial systems. So it had to be for ICT. Millions, otherwise it's people that employ to help bridge our business, but they don't work on their own. Children spell love. Children spell love T-I-M-E. Time, and that's translated into love. Employees are no different. So the time to show the love and the HR component had. Well, numbers are the most important. In fact, quickly, marketing and finance, in my opinion, are the only 2 challenges you have in business. The only 2. Because if you fix those 2 challenges, you get to solve all the other problems. Because you will have the surplus money to buy systems, get the right staff on board, etc., etc. Okay? But we need to have a finance hat. Sadly, the bane of any entrepreneur business owner's life, the bane of anybody who's extroverted or very driven and domineering is admin. But it's critical. And there we've got all ranges of admin. Not so important admin through to things like compliance and stuff like that. Then we need to have time again for strategizing, planning, strategic outlook, thinking, innovating, all that wonderful stuff. And then lastly, you need to wear the hat of personal development. Now, if I'm working in an organization, whose responsibility is my personal development? The trick is the first word, personal development. I need to take it. When I'm a supervisor, manager, senior manager, director, shareholder, and owner of a business, who takes responsibility for my personal development? Because we're so busy looking at the development of others in the neglect time. Well, those are mine has to know. And it's damn impossible to do all of those at the same time. But let's take a step further and say, okay, what are things that we should be doing in our businesses, in our lives, and what's the time necessary to do that? So, depending on who you talk to, 6 to 8 hours of sleep to function properly. Some people notice like 10 or 12, let's say 6 to 8 hours. Well, we were kind of 8 to 10 hours maybe. So now we're spending time. Well, then you should be exercising. If you listen to 20 minutes to an hour a day, we need to be spending some time in quiet, in scripture, in religious practice, in yoga, in mindfulness, in personal development. You call it what. We need to be preparing food, buying food, commuting. Ideally, don't want to be so too bad, so we need to bring some cleanliness and routines. We spend some time with loved ones, with our friends and family, with our social, with our hobbies. Well, 25 hours ago. It's impossible to work like that in one day. Because when we workshop this with big groups of people, often we get to 36 hours required perfectly for everything we should be doing. And when we look at 8 to 10 hours there at the office, well, we've got all these different things that we need to work. So how do we start doing that? And I want to ask you, and maybe type that in to the question box or to the comment section if you're on Facebook Live. When did you feel most free? So think back to in your life. What was the stage of your life that you felt most free, that you didn't feel like you were being chased, that your to-do list was too long, that you were behind on emails, that you just had the freedom? And let's see what you can come up with. So for some of you, that's not that far away. Some of you have to rack your brain over multiple decades. But when did you feel most free? And I see some of the comments coming through and some of the questions. And yes, when I was a child, when I was at school, when my mother looked after me, when I had no stress at school. So the tendency always comes out true. We felt most free when we were young and we were at school. Okay, so let's think about that freedom. What time did you wake up in the morning? What time did you go to bed? When did you eat breakfast? What did you eat dinner? When did you have science? When did you play rugby, netball, tennis? When was there time for social? When was there time for home? The reality is, time of our lives, we felt most free. We had the most structure ever. Somebody else decided for us when we woke up. The process: wake up, dress, breakfast, brush teeth, get in the car, get to a certain time, call, subject off subject. You could break at a certain time, you could eat at a certain time. Everything was structured for us, yet we felt most free. Now, that's the trick that you have to get back to. Because this freedom that we have as adults and this brain that's constantly overwhelmed with what to do, trying to reprioritize in our head what's important, what's urgent, what's not, is why we battle, why we procrastinate, why it takes longer to get things done and we hardly started and then we're moving on to something else. Now, especially if you're listening to this as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, I know that you have every single psychological disorder there is. They all do. We all do. ADHD, OCD, a little bit neurotic, a little bit schizophrenic and bipolar, because we're all over the place. But we have to bring back the structure. So let's map out the week. Okay? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and a bit for Saturday and Sunday. So let's look at why the week becomes a problem and it feels so long after a Monday and Tuesday. So excuse the humor, after Monday and Tuesday, what do we have? WTF. So it gets harder. That's why things like, klein Saterdag and drinks on a Wednesday and golf on a Wednesday are so important, because we need that break in that transition. But okay, let's think about our 9 hats. Let's think about our priorities. How do we structure that? So I'm going to give you some practical examples of what we do. So 8 o'clock on a Monday morning is our team meeting or webinar with all our coaches around the country, all 40 odd of them. We've got some guests that join us from countries around the world, Nigeria, Belgium, Holland, and every Monday at 8 o'clock that webinar happens. I don't have to think about it. It's structured for every single Monday of the year, unless there's a public holiday or we're closed in our summer break over December. Every Monday at 9 o'clock is a staff meeting. Pretty simple. That's just the way it works. Every single Monday. Every other day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we have a team huddle of 15 minutes from 7:45 to 8, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So that happens by default. So we call this a default diary. You design your ideal default. Now, for me, running many different businesses as well as roles, Mondays for me are coach support. That's when I look after the team, have my sessions with the coaches around the countryside. Tuesday is franchise development. That's when I'm running the franchise, engaging with new prospects, doing workshops, webinars, trainings, and stuff like that. Wednesdays are firm development. So this office is also a coaching office, a coaching business, and that happens on a Wednesday. Thursday is coaching day. That's when I coach clients. And Friday is other, and there's a whole range of different things. Friday is also the day that we work on the business. So there's 2 Fridays a month that's a finance slot. There's 1 Friday a month that there's a training slot, etc., etc. But it's structured. Now, some of you are going, oh, brilliant, I'm going to go do everything from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. Not quite the ideal, but we want to have the chunks in there that's important. So if you know sales and marketing is important, well, say a Tuesday morning and the Thursday afternoon is your sales and marketing day. You don't yet know what you're going to do in that sales time. Are you doing some follow-up calls? Are you doing follow-ups on quotes? Are you sending out quotes? It doesn't matter what you're doing. But by default, I know that on a Tuesday morning and a Thursday afternoon, that's my sales time. The beauty about having a default is that more and more people around you, both internal as well as external, know, don't try and get hold of Harry on a Tuesday or a Thursday afternoon, Tuesday morning, Thursday afternoon, he's not available. It also forces me on a Monday afternoon to start prepping for Tuesday morning sales, on a Thursday morning to ensure that I'm prepped for Thursday afternoon sales, and that happens by default. So for me, Mondays are out. You can forget about it. Can't get hold of me on a Monday unless something's happening after 5, and in fact some Mondays after 6. Then you can't get hold of me on Monday. That's coach support day. It's back to back, literally. But once I'm done with that, I'm done with that. I can focus on other things. So you need to take your priorities, the 9 hats you wear in business, the other little things that you need to do, and structure that. I have 2 motorbikes that I love riding. I have 3 kids. I used to be a nippers coach at Strand Lifesaving Club. These things need to fit into them weekends, mornings, afternoons. And if I know that that's the day that I exercise, then that's the day. If I know that's the day that I must not ride the motorbike because I've generally got meetings, so Wednesday is normally that day. Otherwise I end up with helmet hair, and, between meetings and get wet and all the rest of it. Then it becomes easier. When somebody asks to see me, I can just slot in my thinking to where they're at and where I'm at and where the priorities can meet my designed life and not somebody else. Because here's the thing. What do you think other people have planned for your life, your business, your role, whatever that may be? Not that much. They want to impart their priorities. Now, often we like to say yes. We like to make a plan. We like to go the extra mile. But to truly take ownership back of time management, of my time, I need to actually say no. Because by default, if I keep saying yes to what other people want, I'm saying no to not only what I want, but what I need. So let's say that again. The more I say yes to what other people want, the more I'm actually saying no to what I want, but more importantly, what I need. It's a subconscious opposite of the same reality. Yes to everybody else, no to a lot of what I want. So I want to leave this passing thought with you. You wouldn't take money to a bank and waste it. You wouldn't take money to a bank and spend it. You would take money to a bank and invest it. Now, when I invest my money, I expect a return. The return might be different. If it's in a savings account, a fixed deposit account, a money market account, a unit trust, shares, property, Bitcoin, doesn't matter. If I have an investment, I expect a return. Interesting. So why don't I expect a return on my time? And I want you to think about that when you put your default diary together. I want you to think about that when you're looking at your bullseye working on your role or on your business. Because let's put into perspective those percentages, okay? So if we look at it and say, here's half the day, there's distraction, there's delusion. Because that's 10% of the week, 5 days, 10% will be the morning, 10% will be the afternoon. Then we look at the demand, 60% of the week. We got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But now the last 20% is a full day, the whole of the day. 8 hours that I need to dedicate to working on my business, that I need to making sure that all those 9 hats are ticked. Some of them might be here, but where am I working on my priorities? And I want to get an investment out of that. I want to invest my time wisely so that it serves me. I want to invest my time where I need to do it so I get a return. Now, eating breakfast is not going to give a big return, but it's the sustenance that I need to go through the day, so there is some return. If I'm investing in lunch and learn, 30 minutes once a month, every second Tuesday, from 1 to 1:30, I want to make sure that I'm getting a return. If I'm having a meeting with somebody and I'm moving my priorities around, I must make sure that I get an extra special return. Otherwise, it must come later when I forget all the time. So I hope that's helped. Banish the myths. No such thing as managing time. Cannot have work-life balance in the immediate, and definitely can't have it all at the same time. Look at things that are distracting and deluding you so that they become the minimum and you've got the bulk of your week to focus on what you really need to do. But then we need to create that sweet spot, that bullseye, that working on my role or on my business, the 20%, so that I can design my default diary to ensure that I get the return that I desperately need. So I hope that was useful. If you've got any questions, type them into the chat box. We'll take a few minutes before we let you go to lunch, just to show you. Mine has arrived. Good old Rocco and Riley. And fancy that? With an Action Coach stamp on it. So please go and support Rocco and Riley. If you're in the Stellenbosch area, in particular Techno Park, they also have a book giveaway every month that we've donated. And it's around making sure that people get the knowledge that they need. Also, their wraps. There's my wrap, ready for lunch. So if you come and either eat and learn at the same time, difficult for me to eat and present, so I'll eat afterwards. But we'll be doing this every second Tuesday of the month from 1 to 1:30. Make sure that you register on the website, impact.actioncoach.com, and then we'll take it from there. So let me look through some of the questions that have come up. Yeah, not enough hours in the day, always dancing to the tune of others. Boss is too demanding, end up working for SARS. There's a lot of comments in here. Okay, here's a question. Yeah, so how do I design my default? Good question, because like I mentioned earlier, you cannot do it from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. It will drive you insane. You still need some movement in your diary, and there's also the reality that things happen. but I want to put the blocks in that are important. So let me even blend a little bit of work-life balance. So cricket matches on Wednesdays, as an example. So I've got 3 children, 19, 15, and 11, and the 11-year-old loves his cricket. Well, that's Tuesdays. I can't get there every Tuesday, because Tuesday for me is my firm development day. But I can get there at least once a month, and therefore that's the default. And I can't get there at 2 when they start, because at 2 when they start, they're still doing a coin toss and getting their things together. But if I get there kind of 3, then I can do enough by seeing enough of the match, seeing him maybe bowl. He doesn't bowl that often. He likes to be wicket keeper, then he bat, and therefore I can see that. That's great. I can create the default to once a week, take the kids to school, because fortunately my wife takes them most of the time, but I can do that once a week. So I want to put all my priorities into my diary. If I'm in a sales role and I haven't got time to go see new customers or call on existing customers, I haven't done my work. That's just as simple as that. If I am in a HR role, and I'm spending all my time in meetings with other HR people and not so much with the actual staff of the organization, well, then I've got it wrong. If I'm an entrepreneur and I don't have finance time, then I should have it in there. And in fact, I encourage, when I talk about money and everything that goes with that, you should have a wealth hour. Every single one of us, once a week, a wealth hour. Now, that might be assessing your balance sheet, keeping track of it quarterly, managing your cash flow. It doesn't matter, there's various things. But if you have a wealth hour once a week, it forces you to look at that as a priority. And that's sadly another one of those things that's not that urgent, but critically important. So when it's way too late. So hopefully that helps to help you with those priorities. Let me just see here. Oh, that's a good question. Not enough time. This one's actually coming from Bloemfontein. So I grew up in Welkom, in the Free State. My wife's from Bloemfontein, love people from the Free State, the best in the world. So it's a question around salaries. When do you employ someone? Now, like it or not, nobody likes to employ someone, because entrepreneurs think they can do it quicker, better, faster than themselves. And in the beginning stages of a business, generally they can, because they're juggling all as the demand on your time. You can't you have to manage people. Woe is me. Just get on with the people. If I'm a good leader, no, that's the biggest load of crap. People need both leadership and management, and you have to have time or money to afford it. So here's a good rule: if you can afford half the salary, employ the person, because they will say on the first of the month, you know, your contract, and you've got to pay them the 25th or maybe the end of the month, depending. The whole month for them to make up or freeing up time for you so that you can bring in additional business or make some money extra or get some debtors to pay or whatever the case. So good rule of thumb, if you've got half the amount of money, then you can employ them. The other thing just on that, and we'll talk more about this, I think, towards the end of the year when we do recruitment, is you should always be recruiting even if you can't afford it. Now that doesn't sound quite right, does it? Well, here's the beauty. Just because I'm putting an advert out there doesn't mean I have to employ someone, because I might not find the right candidate. Then I'm not going to employ somebody. I'll rather recruit again and start the process again. I might find the right candidate, but I don't want them to start for 6 months, and neither can they start for 6 months. Great. So why not employ somebody now in March that's going to start on the 1st of July? Because now I've got urgency to find the money to pay them. I've also got the ability to create their role and be very clear around the objectives. I've also got lots of time to do pre-training with them, share them some more of the organization information, stuff like that. So any business should always be recruiting. That doesn't mean you always have to be appointing, and even if you do, you don't have to appoint today. Yes, they might have to work 30-day notice, but they can only give that notice in June. They don't have to give it now. So I can do that in an organization, and that's often something people miss. So I thought I'd just share that quickly. So just checking the 2 different screens here. What other questions we've got? Yeah, mostly comments, really valuable. Yeah, the ability to say no is a big one. It's a big one. because like I said, if we're saying yes to everybody, we're often saying no to our own priorities. I love the idea of the wealth hour. We'll do finance. I think it's in 2 months' time, maybe a bit more. We'll look at finance, and I'll do both business and personal finance in there, because the two are often interlinked and a critical thing. So I want to just thank you for joining. I think make sure that you're registered. You'll get the reminders for all the other events. If you haven't already registered, impact.actioncoach.com, a different topic every time. And make sure that you share this with your friends and family, because I don't think nearly enough do we get the knowledge, practical knowledge that we need to make ourselves more successful as well as our companies. And whilst you're there on impact.actioncoach.com, browse around, lots of other free resources. And if you do want to take your business to the next level, if you do feel that you're stuck, there's more for you, you are cruising, you've got lazy, you're in a comfort zone, there's different motivations why people take on a coach. I fundamentally believe you will not do this on your own. Humans don't have the discipline, the desire, or the motivation, but we lack the outside perspective that we need. Every single athlete on the planet will always have a coach. Maybe a different coach if they're not getting the results, but they'll always have a coach. If you're in business, you should get a coach. It's up to you to decide who and where that is. But impact.actioncoach.com, as well as actioncoach.co.za, if you want to look at coaches in your area. And, you know, Marianne, we've got a great coach in Bloemfontein, Marie-Louise Smith, that you can look up in the area too. And then we'll also be doing some more robust workshops where we go, also free workshops, where we unpack our 6 steps methodology of how to build a business in a structured way to ensure you've got a strong foundation, you're able to leverage profit, you've got a uniqueness, you put the structures and the systems into place, you've got a team that manages that, so that ultimately you run a business that can work without you. Not always easy, but very simple, and we can show you how. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me on this first Lunch and Learn session. I hope you've had value. Please type in the value or send us an email on any suggestions you have, any comments, and definitely look forward to seeing you again next month. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.